Treasury advice that was accidentally released to the ABC. Business reporter Dan Ziffer has been poring over the documents. He joins us now. Dan, good morning. So what is in the brief?
This is a really substantial insight into what Treasury thinks. It certainly didn't want us to know it. It asks Treasurer Jim Chalmers, essentially lays out some of the options for him. And this is not an instruction list of what he has to do, but it really says you need to raise taxes, you need to cut spending, and the signature election pledge of the government to build 1.2 million homes over 5 years will not be met. This is a really big insight into where Treasury thinks we need to go. It talks about raising taxes, things like indirect taxes, such as the GST, and really reshaping the economy around what we need to do. So it says at the moment we're unsustainable. That's something we know. We spend more money than we make. This is essentially a template for the Treasurer as he starts a second term of what he might do about it.
Dan, what does Treasury suggest about the global instability? We know the Reserve Bank Board has been talking about it, everyone's been talking about it, but that instability created by the Trump administration's tariffs and possible changes to world trade.
Well, they've really prudently done a series of scenarios, everything from the very mild up to the utterly catastrophic. And it looks at things like those tariffs impacting world trade, but it goes beyond that. It looks at the potential devaluation of the US dollar. Now, the world uses the US dollar as essentially a sovereign currency, as a store of wealth. It looks at that becoming less able to happen in the future. The other thing it looks at is the potential loss of independence from the Federal Reserve. That's their central bank, their version of the RBA, and it models what might happen if the world loses confidence that there's independence between the Trump administration and the central bank. This is really big stuff. It lays out some really huge options here and models some of the potential problems and some of the potential solutions, like we saw during COVID and the GFC, where the government made direct cash payments to households to keep the economy afloat.
Dan, what will happen now?
Well, the government has been really open about the fact they haven't ruled things in or out. For example, in this document, it essentially moots that we might look at expanding the GST to cover more things or increasing the rate of it. The Treasurer has been really careful not to rule that in or out over time. They're having an economic roundtable soon of business leaders, unions, community groups, workers and more to try and nut out some of these really big challenges facing the Australian economy. What this document shows us is real insight into just how substantial some of these issues are and some of the really hard answers and hard questions we're going to have to ask ourselves.
Dan, how do we know all this detail? Where did it come from?
So every department and agency creates a thing called the incoming government brief. They create a red book for in case Labor wins and a blue book for in case the coalition wins. I applied through the Freedom of Information process for the documents from all of the government agencies to get an insight into what they saw as the issues for the coming few years. Treasury sent me theirs, but it didn't have anything useful in it. They had redacted all of the information. However, what happened was they had, in a small digital detail, essentially left a table of contents for all of the redacted information. So this lays out things like you need to raise taxes, your housing target won't be met. Treasury did not want this information out there. The ABC has published it in the public interest. It really does show Treasury unafraid of its boss, fearless to give really substantial and difficult bits of information to the Treasurer and to the Australian government.